I think it's better to let people have their own interpretations of these things. I don't know, it makes it a more personal experience as a viewer, I think, if like you have to kind of plug some gaps.
Yep.
And like your version of the movie is going to be different than your wife's version of the movie. And I think that's fun.
I know it's serious if you don't see a backdrop in the video. I just got done rewatching Weapons. And after my second watch, I can honestly say I was glazing on that first watch. I'm not gonna lie. I had really high expectations for the movie. I felt like it met them in my first watch, but I was proven wrong. Now, don't get me wrong though. I still do like this movie a lot. I got a movie was broken out of different chapters. We get to see how each character is involved in the plot of this movie. So some of them characters, I do feel like we didn't really need them to have their own chapter, like Paul. Paul's whole thing with Donna. Like, only time with that is the fact that Donna ends up pulling up on Justine later on in the movie to pour alcohol on her. Other than that, I feel like Paul didn't necessarily deserve his own chapter. The most impactful things Paul does in the movie is involved in James's story. But let me not go on the chapters like that, because like I said, I did like that portion of the movie. What I didn't like though is learning that a lot of what we're putting stock in, those who really like the movie, essentially doesn't really have that much deeper meaning to it. Words coming out of Zach Cregger's mouth directly. Essentially, he wants fans to make their own interpretation of what some things in the movie stands for, what they mean, etc. And that's not really a bad thing, but for me personally, I also feel like that adds to the discourse amongst fans for this movie. Not giving us clear meanings and understandings of why things like an assault rifle being on top of Matthew's house was a thing. Why the people that are controlled by Aunt Gladys' witchcraft run the way they do. Why Aunt Gladys is even doing any of this to begin with. A lot of that is just left up to interpretation. Even Aunt Gladys' origins are very shaky in this movie, with Alex's dad even saying he doesn't even know if his mom knows her sister like that, which led me to believe, okay, well, maybe they were separated at birth, because we see Gladys seems to look a lot older than Alex's mom. But then we hear her later say in the movie that she hadn't seen Alex since he was a little boy. So clearly she had some type of involvement in their life, but you don't know if she knew her for real, but knew her enough to have her around your child. Ultimately, all what I said is just nitpicks though. At the end of the day, I still really love the movie, but I just hate the fact that Zach Cregger is basically allowing fans to just make their own meanings and interpretations of what actually happened in the movie, as opposed to just giving those things your own meaning as the director of this movie. Even if you don't tell us what those things mean and you want us to have our own interpretation of it, okay, cool. But don't tell us, you know what, I'm just gonna let the fans interpret Gladys, the villain of this movie's motives throughout the movie. I'm gonna let them figure out why she's doing her own witchcraft and why she even needed the kids to begin with, because it's implied that she needed the kids because the life force of the parents wasn't enough. But then can we assume that she needed the kids because the kids are younger, or because it's multiple kids that she's bringing into the house and taking the life force out of them? Like, things like that we could use a direct meaning for. I'm not saying it needs to be everything. And like I said, I'm not even against the whole notion of fans interpreting some things in the movies. There's a lot of movies that do that. But I just feel like the motive for the villain of the movie cannot be one of those things. After the second watch, I'm really hoping Zach Cregger stays true to his word and incorporates some type of sequel/prequel into this universe, because I feel like we could use that. I'm not gonna lie. Whether it's a sequel where we get a deeper look of what happens to the kids after the events of this movie, or a prequel where we see how Gladys learns about these abilities, more of her relationship with Alex's mom, how that might have got strained along the way, and maybe the price she had to pay for her life force depleting the way it is. Another sequel idea I could throw in there, maybe we can get a focus on Michael and Archer's storyline. We know in the dream sequence that Archer has when he's talking to Michael, he's saying that he wished he was able to tell him that he loved him more. And I think it would be good for us to see him nursing Michael back to health, showing him that love that he wasn't able to show him in the first movie. Also, hopefully getting some horror elements thrown in between with their relationship. I don't know, maybe I'm asking for too much. I was watching my boy 3C Films review of this movie. Shout out to 3C Films. If you don't know, go ahead and look into my boy. Great movie reviewer. And I seen in that comment the irony that Michael's son ended up being a bully to Alex. Knowing the context that Archer wasn't really providing him with that love earlier on in the movie, it makes sense why Michael ended up the way he did. Maybe I'm giving the movie more credit than it actually deserves, but let Zach Cregger tell it, I'm doing the right thing. I need answers, Zach. You gotta make this sequel or prequel or both happen. Before I get into some other notes that I took while watching this movie a second time, I do gotta walk back the claim that I believe Weapons is a better movie than Barbarian. No, it is not, in my opinion. Like I said, Weapons is still a very good movie, but Barbarian was a different monster entirely. We as horror fans had no idea what we were walking into when we got to that theater to watch Barbarian. But a good majority, if not all fans, I know y'all left that theater absolutely shocked at what y'all just witnessed. And the twist in Weapons is pretty good, especially with how the chapters are broken down in the movie. I think leaving Alex's chapter for last was very good on Zach Cregger's part. But then you litter on Gladys throughout the movie for no good reason. That's another thing too. Like, Zach, you telling us that we can leave all of these things to our own interpretation. Well, why the hell do we see Gladys in not just Justine's dream? not just Archer's dream. We even got to see Gladys well ahead of her official introduction into the movie in James's chapter. Mad random in the middle of the woods, for what? Even if her witchcraft grants her the ability to infiltrate other people's dreams, why would she want to do that? What if Miss Gandy was walking into the school the same day that Alex was getting interviewed by them cops, and just so happened to see a glimpse even on Gladys? You don't think the way she was stooping more than the police in this movie, she wouldn't have put two and two together? I hated seeing Aunt Gladys appear as much as she did throughout the movie, because a lot of those times Aunt Gladys appears, you can tell the movie's trying to draw out scares from the audience. It's not the fact that they're trying to bait scares, it's the fact that you're trying to bait scares with the person who's directly responsible for all 17 of those kids going missing. So by the time we see her walk into Marcus's office, we kind of already have an idea that she's the one behind all of this. Especially with how Marcus was glazing her on her walk-in as if he ever met her before. Definitely think they could have did a better job keeping Aunt Gladys hidden up until Marcus's chapter at least. So going over my very first note for the movie, it looks like the police try to cover everything up once the kids were recovered by the end of the movie. I just want to say the police in this movie are trash. All of them, every single one of them are trash. I hate the trope of the main character and surrounding characters in the movie being better detectives than the police themselves. I know they're the main characters, but shit just do not make sense. 3C Films even asked the question of how the hell are there no police outside of Alex's house 24/7? I think Alex being the only kid to return to Miss Gandy's class at the beginning of the movie still makes sense based on what happens at the end of the movie. But there's no way the parents weren't encouraging the police to look more into Alex than they were Miss Gandy. I understand Miss Gandy's the adult in the situation, but Alex being the only kid of 18 kids to return back to class, and y'all don't think he's more suspicious than her? At the very least worth looking into? Like, what? Also, another note I had, who the hell is narrating this movie? It sounds like whoever this is goes to school with Alex. They live in the same town, but we never really get to know who this narrator is. Is Zach Cregger ever going to tell us who the narrator was in a later movie? Or is that just another one of those things we just gotta leave up to our own interpretation? I love the decision to not show Gladys or Alex's dad when he's being interrogated by the police. And I honestly think they should have stuck to that. I don't think we should have seen Gladys or Alex's parents until at least Marcus's chapter in this movie. But obviously, that did not happen. Now, I gotta go back to the police point because I'm sorry, but these kids were missing for over a month. And we're giving Miss Gandy more heat than the police? My guy Archer put all that time into vandalizing Miss Gandy's car. He needs to use that extra effort and go ahead and bomb the police department in Minecraft, obviously. Now, one thing I will say that I appreciated the first time and second time watching this movie is how much they paint Justine to be the villain. That's something we saw in Barbarian with Alex Skarsgård's character. How we thought it was very suspicious bro just so happened to rent out the same B&B as Shorty. Everybody thought he was going to be the villain, then it turned out the mother was the villain. But really, it was the dude who made the mother to begin with who was the actual villain. I really love how Archer lays out all the bad that comes with Miss Gandy. Her DUI 2 years ago, her relationship with some of her students in the past, some entanglement she shared with some of the staff at some other institution she might have taught at. He has a bad history, so it's no surprise that he believes that she has some deeper involvement in what's going on with these kids. One thing we for sure have to get in a sequel to this movie is an expanded understanding of Justine and Donna's relationship. Justine, Paul, and Donna clearly know each other from some past. I don't know if they went to school together. I don't know what it is, if Donna and Justine are related. Shout out to Nix for that theory about Donna and Justine being related, by the way. It is sound in my opinion. And I definitely think that that's somewhere that they can go in the sequel movie if Zach Cregger chooses to do it. I feel like it would be appropriate with Paul dying, like just having Justine and Donna connect in that way. Also, shout out to Nix for pointing this out, but I feel like Donna was way too comfortable throwing that liquor on Justine in that liquor store. Especially knowing that Justine is this monster to the whole community. Like, that's really some sibling shit. I think Cregger purposely played with the love triangle between the three as well. We got Paul mentioning to Justine, you haven't changed a bit, indicating that they have more of a relationship than we're being shown in the movie. We even know Paul has a drinking problem where he goes to sobriety classes. We know Justine drinks a lot in this movie. And Donna calls Paul a piece of shit later on in the movie, but is it because of his drinking or because she knows that he ended up with Justine at the end of the night? She clearly knows Justine well enough to pull up on her in the liquor store and do what she did to her in that store. There's a deep relationship there, and I hope Zach Cregger expands on that in a follow-up movie, God willing. After watching Nix's review on the movie, I did pay more attention to Matthew's room going back on a second watch. Got the gun game poster up, a Mad Max poster, he's on the baseball team, got Batman sheets, typical American boy bedroom. I do find it interesting that only above his crib, at least from what we've seen, did that rifle spawn with the 217. Now, if you let Zach Cregger tell it, this is something that one of the people on the writing staff just dreamt of, so he decided to just throw it in the movie. If you let me tell it, I feel like it's just indicating the fact that we're later going to find out that these kids are actually weaponized, as Archer later points out, to do whatever the controller assigns them to do. I know I keep getting on Paul's chapter, but I generally feel like it was so unnecessary for this movie that a lot of what we got in that chapter is going to be brought up in a follow-up movie that Zach Cregger has to be cooking up. We just get too much of the ins and outs of Donna and Paul's relationship, down to even learning who Donna's father is being the sheriff. For me, there's no reason to sacrifice runtime to introduce us to the movie if it doesn't have some type of significance to the story down the road. Two more things I want to comment on before ending this video. Consumption and Gladys herself. When I looked up consumption, that and tuberculosis are basically synonymous. Now, tuberculosis is a disease that mainly affects the lungs, and it appears like they're indisposed position when they're not in attack mode. We see this with Marcus when he's struggling to breathe before he goes ahead and attacks his partner on Gladys' order. It appears they go into consumptive state when she rings the bell, and they go in attack mode when she breaks the stick. Only pausing when she throws the stick into the bowl of water. Now, why a bowl of water and not a cup? I have no idea. I'm also curious about though is the black blood that Marcus threw up on his partner. And that same black blood leaking out of Paul after Justine shot him. Very curious to see that expanded on a potential future movie. My final comment is, what on earth is Gladys? She's saying water won't help her at all, but life force of Alex's parents and them kids will. 360 contract did you sign with the devil to have you moving like this? I gave Weapons an 8 out of 10 after rewatch. Still a very good movie, just a lot of plot holes.